So my name is Nina Grinman, and I'm an engagement specialist at United Nations Development Program. I manage, amongst other things, a platform called SparkBlue, which is our UN's online engagement platform. To date, we have around 33,000 development practitioners from all around the world, almost every single country, and from all sorts of different industries, such as private sector, NGOs, UN agencies, academia, and more. So this is our second platform with Open Social. Our first one was called Global Dev Hub. And in UNDP, we say that that's before Nina and after Nina. So Global Dev Hub was not me, but SparkBlue is. So SparkBlue came about as a first digital lighthouse initiative under UNDP's first ever digital strategy in 2019. And the idea of transformation in the UNDP, but also outside of UNDP. As the first thing that we did was to look at what have we done before in UN, but also specifically UNDP. So we looked at different engagements like we have done, such as Rio Plus 20 and My World. We also looked at this specific consultation, which is the world we want. To date, it's still one of the biggest consultations we've ever had. And it involved over 1 million people from, again, almost every single country in the world, to add their voices and help shape the future of development. It led to the development of Sustainable Development Goals, which the UN agencies use quite a lot. What we learned through this process was that although technology is an enabler, effective knowledge management requires human solutions. And this was especially important for me because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a technology person. But to understand people was very, very important for me. So the platform was ready in March 2020. Talk about timing, because it was a week before COVID hit. And everything changed. So we decided to take a break and stop with the planning for the launch and try to understand this new normal that was taking place. What we realized was that there was no challenge we faced that can be solved by one person, by one country, or by one organization. So we took this information and the fact that now our new normal was working from our living rooms and tried to see how we could bring people on board to this. I think Taco mentioned this in his presentation where he said one of the big issues with a platform is multitude is a platform and getting people to want to use something new. Now, we were in COVID times, so we launched this in June 2020. And if I can say it nicely, I might have stalked people a little bit. Prior to this, I might have bullied them a little bit, but to convince them that in order for us to adapt to this new world, we had to use more of a collective intelligence approach. So in comes SparkBlue. And what I mentioned in terms of like bullying a little bit was because UNDP was at that time going through development of its strategic plan. And normally what happens with the strategic plan development in UN or UNDP is that there's a bunch of people sitting around a table, sitting down and writing a strategic plan for the organization. So I bullied them a little bit to say, you can't do that anymore. We're in 2020. We have access to all of these different platforms. We should be using the collective intelligence of 20,000 people in this organization to develop a plan that everybody owns. And so we initiated our strategic plan consultation for UNDP. I didn't know it then, but this set the stage of us holding strategic plan consultations for over 9 UN agencies. We're having one coming up right now for UNESCO, actually. And it's been really changing the way we do things in the UN to making it really collaborative and, asking people who have been working in the field in the 170 country offices, what works in the countries? What do we really need to think about? Do we have the capacities that we need to deliver on our mission? So the strategic plan consultation was just one of them, but we have held many, many more since. Another example that I'm showing you here is the Voices from Sahel. This was also the first time that we engaged youth and women in the Sahel about their future and their ambitions. all of these consultations that we do have one thing in common, which is what is the impact that we're looking for. So when somebody comes to us and says, we want to do an online consultation on SparkBlue, we make them go through a needs assessment, which is kind of like a good cop, bad cop kind of situation, where we ask them the hard questions. We start off with saying, ultimately, what would be the impact you're looking for? And then we reverse engineer that into, what are the questions you need to ask? Who are the people you should ask? And how do we get to those people? An example is we did a consultation for Iraq youth, specifically men. We engaged a lot of people. We launched a consultation, and not a single person logged in, and not a single person commented the first 2 days. And we were shocked. We were like, how is this possible? We had so many people wanting to do this. Everybody was excited, and we couldn't reach anybody. And so we picked up the phone and called people in Iraq to find out what was the issue. And they said that nobody opens up an email. If you want to reach people, you have to meet them where they are. And so WhatsApp was the way for us to do it. So we sent it out. We did a whole WhatsApp campaign. And we received many, many, many comments and great examples of what their future looked like and what they wanted to change. But we had to adapt, and we had to meet them where they were. This is just another example. We do a lot of different consultations on the platform. This is our bread and butter. It's what we're good at. And the reason why a lot of UN agencies come to us to do consultations on SparkBlue is because we give them the technology that's ready to use. Often language is a barrier for being part of something bigger. So having the Google translations is really helpful for us. It's one of our biggest selling points. We add the human component part of it. We have about 20 years of experience in managing online consultations. So we bring in the advisory services. We don't leave anybody to do their own thing. We help them every step of the way. We provide moderate training. We help them with the questions that they have, and we help them with pulling together consolidated replies and so on. So AI, I'm actually looking forward to be able to use for consultation purposes. We also have the ability to engage different types of audiences. So I mentioned we have 33,000 people on the platform. We have about a third of them being UNDP and 2/3 being externals. So we're also looking forward in what will be discussed tomorrow in terms of engaging with other agencies as well, in terms of tapping into their networks. During COVID, we also took the opportunity to do virtual missions. At the time, it was impossible for people to travel, but the work in those countries was still as crucial as it was before. So we used SparkBlue to create missions onto the platform using the community component, using events and resources as well. It is also the home of UNDP's corporate communities of practice. These are 10 corporate communities of practice. This is where we hold our community exchanges, our resources, our webinars. Everything is organized per our taxonomy and is accessible by everyone in UNDP. So this is just a little bit about our numbers. We launched in June 2020, and we have, been very successful. But obviously, it hasn't always been easy. We've had internal issues in getting the platform adopted. There's always we were discussing this before about Microsoft and other big technologies coming in and pushing us out kind of thing. It requires a lot of communication and kind of standing your ground a little bit and learning. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you as well. Just a last couple of slides to show you our partners. We keep expanding. It's at the point where I don't have to go harass people anymore. Now they come to me, which is great. And I'm just going to leave you with this one message from the UN Secretary General about how important networks are for our future. And you mentioned what's happening in Palestine and Ukraine and everything. And these are even more important for us to be able to cross those barriers and engage across. Thank you.
You can stay as well. We also are open for questions. Anyone? Yeah. If you please pass this. So my name is Patricia. I'm starting up a community of practice for the European Centre for Disease Control and Prevention of Diseases of the European Union. And I'm wondering, the UN obviously is a big organization, and I'm sure you also have a community of learning somewhere, and maybe not on Open Social. So I'm wondering how this interconnects with what you're doing in SparkBlue. And how basically maybe mutual and peer learning or training courses, how that's mixed, and how you managed not to have a conflict between the platforms.
Thank you. So we have these 10 corporate communities of practice, and they are housed in SparkBlue, but that was not where they were housed initially. They were housed in Yammer at the time, which is Viva Engage now, and SharePoint, and it didn't work for us. And so now that they are all on SparkBlue, we have different types of communities that come around and ask us where they should be. So, honestly, it's a bit of a conversation in terms of what is their needs and where should they meet. And sometimes that is in SparkBlue. Teams is a great platform for conversations for daily work, and that is where you should meet for certain things. And SparkBlue is good for other reasons. We have a great relationship with different partners in different parts of the organization, such as Office of Human Resources and Learning specifically, and we work with them. We do use the course function, so we do have that ability as well, but that is not the only place that learning takes place in UNDP. It happens everywhere. What we try to do is we want to make sure that we are accessible from all those places. So any learning on SparkBlue will be showcased in the platforms that we use for learning. But we cross-work. You don't have to use SparkBlue for everything, only for those things that are needed, as long as you're informed about your choices and can make the best decision. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, Taco.
Hi, Nina.
Hi.
You mentioned we're competing against Microsoft in the UN, and sometimes we're competing with Salesforce. I would not have thought we were going to compete with these big tech companies, but here we are. What are they doing really well that we can learn?
I think they have great marketing.
Sorry.
They sell fluff really well. I have been in a lot of conversations with Microsoft, sometimes forcefully by myself, like push myself in those conversations, but they're really good at selling the idea, the dream, so to speak. And I think where they are succeeding is that it is your daily work. It's your email, it's Teams, it's everywhere. So it's really hard to compete with that. So my suggestion wouldn't be to compete with that, but would be to meet them where they fail. I mentioned earlier that I have been offered to take on a different position as long as I give up SparkBlue, which I refuse because I'm stubborn. But I think that what we do through SparkBlue is really valuable. I can see how well it's used. I can see the demand. And I think that Microsoft can't support us on that because in the bigger picture, we're tiny clients to them. And you can see the difference. You don't get the attention. You don't get the responses. We've been having a conversation with them for 2 years around AI and crossing over to get information from SparkBlue. And, it's all very good talking. But you both know that nothing is going to go anywhere with that.
Hi, I'm Anastasia from Greenpeace International. So you are holding this client people-facing consultations on Open Social. Why did you choose, why do you believe this is the most convenient or convenient way for the people to speak to you?
So consultations is not something I created in UNDP. It's way before me. But it's really important because, otherwise you have this higher level group of people sitting, making decisions for people who are going to have to live with the consequences of those decisions. You know, for example, we had a consultation a couple of years ago, which was amazing. It was around gender equality in Arab states. And, you know, initially when we were pulling this together, we looked at our moderators and we realized we didn't have women, you know, moderating a conversation about women, which was crazy. And we were able to then change that around. And then one of the people that commented was very, very active was this one woman who was not educated more than high school. And she had never left her town. She found out about this consultation through friends who were in college at the time. But her comments were so amazing and so great that the moderators and the organizers actually invited her for the first time to take a flight from her country to another country to present the results of this consultation. So you're able to find all of these different great group of people that can tap into and add their collective intelligence to it. So I think for UN specifically, having these participatory approaches to how we develop our policies or plans is really changing the whole system.
Yes, sorry. I meant more in why this technology specifically, like why not, for example, Facebook or any other places where people are already at?
Yeah, so we do actually share these consultations on Facebook and other places. But what makes the use of open social for this purpose really useful is that we can customize it to our audience and to our approach. We use the way that you can see the moderators, for example, is very clearly identified in the consultation space as a really good benefit of seeing who's actually moderating it. We have the support of the advisory services, which says, for example, if you do a consultation, you have a moderator for every week. The moderator have to summarize that week's engagement and put it up on the front. So it allows you to kind of come in at any point and understand it. For us, open source technology works really well with this, and we're able to also embed it into different multiple places, which also is helpful for us. But yeah, you could have it in many different places as well. But this works for us.
I've noticed one of the advice that you provide is consultation from start to end. And you clearly say it's a bit of bad cop, good cop, and it's something that we also try to do, as in to really support our user to understand if they really need a group or whatever they ask us in the first place. Usually it's like, I want a group. It's like, and then there is all some talk and strategy setting and the impact and all of that. How do you manage the relationship so that it's very clear that it's a value that you add to their work and is not a barrier?
I think it's all about how you engage with people just in general. You know, when we first start, when somebody reaches out to us, our first conversation is, want to provide you with the best advice possible so that you can do what you need to do. That may be on SparkBlue, that may not be on SparkBlue. For example, even a UNDP strategic plan. So I harassed them, quite literally, to get to them to do the online consultation on SparkBlue. But when they came back with the questions they wanted to ask, it was clear they weren't taking it seriously. So one of the questions was, is digital important for UNDP's future? Yes, the answer is yes. You don't need to ask a bunch of people. I can tell you the answer. So I actually pushed back and I said, you know what? After thinking about it, I don't think you should do a consultation on SparkBlue. And they were like, what do you mean? You've been harassing us. And I was like, you know, we want to make sure that when people come to the platform to be part of a consultation, that this is not a checkbox. You know, it's not so that you can write in a report saying, I, convened 500 people. But it's to say, like, I had meaningful engagement with these 500 people or 400 people. So it's a lot of those conversations. So I push back a lot and say, what is the question? What is the question we should be asking instead? Do we have the capacities in UNDP to deliver on what digital technology is showing us going forward? That's a different conversation than is digital important. So it's a lot of conversations and making sure that we have that cleared out before we go ahead and start a consultation. There has been times where I have said, you should just do a survey. You can post it on SparkBlue if you want. You don't have to. But this is not consultation. And, it's also about respecting other people's time and engagement, both from the organizer component, but also participatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Frédéric from Education for Climate. How would you describe the use of newsletter, if you use them, and the level of curation you need to do from a community management perspective to keep everyone in the loop of what happens on the platform? Because I guess that these people, they don't connect every morning, first time with a coffee on the platform, right?
Yeah, so the purpose of SparkBlue is not for them to connect every morning. When it comes to UNDP, we want them to go to the platform once a week to see what's happening with the community. But the truth is they also get notifications. So they follow a specific tag, they get a notification, and that's when they will be triggered to go to the platform. For most of our other users, it's on if they're interested in participating in a course or crowdsourcing or a consultation. So we're not expecting daily, but curation is key. And this is where I will become the bad cop and I will argue with people and say, don't have a community if you don't plan on engaging with them. And a lot of times, including when we first started our community of practice, the idea was you put the community onto a platform and people talk to each other. The truth is, if it's not your job, you're not going to be doing it. So we push back quite a lot on this, and we make them make that agreement that if you are having a community on SparkBlue, you commit to engaging with them twice a week, and you commit to having some type of written engagement, meaning utilizing the discussion forum once a month. And if you can't commit to that, this is not the right platform for me. Please go ahead and use Viva Engage, and I'll help you do that as well. It's not a problem, but we try to make that quality and push that. And I think so far, if you do it with a smile, everybody will kind of forgive you. So far, nobody's been angry with me, except IT.
Just a quick one. First of all, I just want to thank you, Nina. You've blazed the trail for us on a lot of this stuff. Open Social should name a building after you. That's my finishing point. They really should. They should. Yeah, a meeting room, at least a meeting room. No, but seriously, the experience you've just said resonates so much with us, although we're a couple of years behind you. But one thing about the needs assessment, and you've talked about it in the last comment, why did you come to the realization you need that needs assessment, and can you share it with us? Because we need the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is true, just experience. When we first, COVID really helped. Before COVID hit, we were going to launch with less push on the human part, and more on the technology part. But because COVID hit and we had this extra couple of months to figure out this new reality, we really started talking to people and seeing what kind of engagements we could offer our colleagues. And immediately I realized that a lot of them were doing stuff just because it's said in a document that you have to have a multi-stakeholder engagement. For those who know UN, we do this thing called VNRs, and one of the requirements is that you do multi-stakeholder engagement. And normally what that means is you either write down that you met before people from different stakeholders, or you did a survey. And so people were like, oh, now we can say we did something on SparkBlue, even if nobody comes to the conversation. And I was like, no, that's not what we're going to be doing here. So we have what we say 5 things that you have to do in order to have a consultation on SparkBlue. One is you have to have an impact that you're looking for. So what is the ultimate outcome you're going to do? What are you going to do with people's voices? If you can't figure this out, you're out immediately. Second thing is you have to have substantive moderators. So these are not just people who know how to do online moderation, but these are people who are expert in their area of work. We provide them with the training so that they can utilize the online audience. Third is there has to be a beginning and an end. It can't go on forever. It's not a day. It's a time period. Normally, that's 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks max. And then we have to have communication. You might have a great conversation that you want to have. You might have great moderators, but if nobody knows it's happening, nobody's coming to it. So you have to know who your target audience is, and you need to know where to find them. But it's something that we have tested out, but those things haven't changed, and we really push back. And people appreciate it. People appreciate having that conversation and seeing, like, maybe I'm not asking the right questions. How can I change that around to get the best out of it? Thank you.
It's working now. Okay.
Hi, sorry, John Franklin from the European Aviation Safety Agency. I'm really interested from a practical perspective with so many different topics, I guess, is what key features of Open Social help you organise, I guess, a breadth of different topics? Do you use large numbers of smaller communities, or do you find other ways within Open Social to organise the information to get the engagement? We have this problem where if you were an airline safety manager, you might have 100 topics, and the chances of enough people being interested in the same thing means we get no traction. I'm really interested how you solve problems like that.
Yeah, we use taxonomy. So we have a very extensive taxonomy that we use, and we do tagging quite religiously on this. And it helps us. And, if you follow a specific community, so say you follow the environment community of practice, and we start a consultation on plastics. It falls within the environment community. So as a community member, you will receive notifications telling you that there's a new consultation that you might be interested in. And given the plastic example, it was an interesting test that we didn't realize we were doing. We started a consultation on what UNDP's plastic offer should be. And when we were putting this together, we do this what would be our KPIs for this consultation. And we had a very low rate of people that we thought would engage on something called plastics. We didn't think UNDP was doing it a lot. It was something we were just getting into. But because it went out to everybody who was part of the community of practice for environment, we started getting more and more people engaged on this. And we realized that UNDP had actually a huge amount of projects around plastics in different ways. Something which, without this, we would never have known. It was so big that it created its own community after this consultation, and is, still today, 3 years later, still a very vibrant community. But tagging system is the way we have been able to really organize our information.
Great. Thank you so much, Nina.